You probably felt this exact sensation before, perhaps even as recently as this morning. Someone speaks to you in a tone that is just a fraction too sharp, or they use a specific word that feels like a tiny, jagged stone thrown at your glass house. In an instant, your entire day is hijacked. That one sentence, that one look, or that one delayed text message starts to loop in your mind like a broken record that you cannot turn off. You try to tell yourself to let it go, but your brain refuses. It stays there, vibrating under your skin, making your chest feel tight and your thoughts feel cluttered. Others might look at you and say that you're overreacting. They might tell you that you're taking things too personally or that you need to develop thicker skin. But for you, this is not just an emotional choice. It's not something you're doing on purpose. It is a physical reality. When you're highly sensitive, the world doesn't just happen around you, it happens to you. And it happens with a volume that is turned up to maximum. Every subtle shift in the atmosphere of a room, every sigh from a colleague, and every micro-expression on a friend's face feels like a loud, unavoidable signal. You're not just being dramatic. Your brain is literally ringing an emergency alarm bell over things that other people don't even notice. This state of high sensitivity is not actually a sign that you're weak or broken. In fact, if we look at this through the lens of human behavior and neuroscience, what you're experiencing is a tragedy of high performance. Your brain has a system designed to detect threats and social nuances, and in your case, that system is operating at an incredibly high bandwidth. You are like a high-definition camera trying to record a world that everyone else is seeing in grainy, low-resolution black and white. You see the hidden details, you feel the unspoken tensions, and you hear the notes between the music. The problem is that this massive amount of data pours into your consciousness at all once. Like a water filtration system with a filter that's been removed, every bit of debris and every drop of impurity from your environment is flooding directly into your emotional core. This is why you feel exhausted even when you haven't done anything physically demanding. You're processing 10 times more information than the person sitting next to you. The most frustrating part is that the harder you try to calm yourself down, the more the sensitivity seems to sharpen. Have you ever noticed that the moment you tell yourself to be cool or stop caring, your brain suddenly becomes hyper-focused on exactly the thing you're trying to ignore? This is a classic psychological trap known as the ironic process theory. If I tell you right now to not think about a white bear, the only thing your mind will produce is the image of a white bear. When you tell your sensitive brain to stop being sensitive, you're essentially pointing a giant spotlight at your discomfort. You're telling your nervous system that the discomfort is a high-priority target. As a result, the bowstring of your nerves is pulled even tighter, and the smallest vibration makes your entire being shudder. So how do you stop this? How do you quiet the noise when the volume dial is stuck at 10? There's a technique that takes exactly 3 seconds, and it's designed to do something your willpower cannot do. It's not about changing your personality or forcing yourself to be someone who doesn't care. Instead, it's a surgical strike on the circuit between the stimulus you're facing and the reaction your body is having. We call this the distance of objectification. It's the process of creating a mental space between what is happening and who you are. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone interrupts you. You feel that heat rise in your neck. You feel your heart begin to pound. In that moment, your sensitivity is telling you that you're being attacked, that you're being disrespected, and that you're not safe. This is where the 3-second rule begins. You don't try to stop the feeling. Instead, you spend exactly 3 seconds labeling the emotion as if you're a scientist observing a specimen in a laboratory. You don't say, "I am angry" or "I am hurt." Using the word "I" merges you with the emotion and makes it impossible to escape. Instead, you look at the sensation and say in your mind, "A signal of social rejection is currently being processed by the brain." Or even simpler, "There is a wave of cortisol rising in the chest." This is not just a clever way to use words. This is a deliberate neurological hijack. When you feel an emotion, the part of your brain called the amygdala is in charge. It's the primitive emotional alarm center that only knows how to fight, flee, or freeze.
But the moment you start to label something with specific objective language, the activity in your brain shifts. Control is handed over to the prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of logic, reason, and high-level decision-making. It's the equivalent of being in a dark, terrifying room and suddenly finding the light switch. The monsters in the room don't necessarily disappear, but because you can see them clearly for what they are, just furniture and shadows, they lose their power to make you scream. You're no longer the victim of the chemical storm. You are the meteorologist observing it. Why is it that these sensitive feelings always seem to get worse when you're trying to fall asleep? When the external world goes quiet, your brain no longer has any outside data to process, so it turns inward and begins to obsess over the internal sounds of your memory. You replay a conversation from 3 years ago, you wonder why a certain person stopped liking your posts, you think of the perfect comeback to an argument that ended 6 hours ago. You're not actually reflecting or learning in these moments. Your brain is simply caught in an infinite loop because it's trying to solve a problem that has no logical answer. You're asking why over and over again. Why did they say that? Why am I like this? Why does everything feel so heavy? The trap of the word why is that it always leads to a bottomless pit of speculation and self-blame. To break the loop, you must switch the focus from why to what. Instead of asking why you feel this way, ask what your body is physically doing in this exact second. For 3 seconds, focus entirely on a boring physical fact. Feel the weight of your heels pressing into the mattress. Feel the cool air entering your nostrils and the warm air leaving them. Feel the texture of the fabric of your shirt against your skin. This works because the human brain is surprisingly bad at multitasking when it comes to intense focus. It can't fully process a complex psychological spiral while it's deeply focused on a direct physical sensation. By forcing yourself to acknowledge a physical reality for 3 seconds, you pull the plug on the psychological loop. The sensitivity loses its power because it no longer has your undivided attention. The truth is that the reason you're so sensitive is actually beautiful, even if it feels like a curse right now. You're sensitive because you have a deep underlying drive to live a meaningful life. You want your relationships to be perfect because you value connection. You want your work to be flawless because you value excellence. You're tuned in to everyone else's emotions because you're fundamentally empathetic. Your sensitivity is an antenna that you've built to catch every signal of love, safety, and success. But you must realize that a high-gain antenna will also catch every bit of static and every bolt of lightning in the area. You've been walking around with your antenna at full height during a thunderstorm, and you're wondering why you keep getting struck. You need to understand that you can be a person who feels everything deeply without being a person who's destroyed by everything they feel. You can acknowledge the data without letting the data dictate your identity. From this moment on, whenever the world feels too loud or someone's comment feels like a physical blow, I want you to pause. Give yourself those 3 seconds. Don't try to fight the feeling. Don't try to be strong. Just watch the feeling as if it's a movie playing on a screen. Tell yourself, my brain is currently generating a high sensitivity response to an external stimulus. By doing this, you build a massive, invisible firewall between your soul and your nervous system. You become the lighthouse that stands still while the waves crash against it, rather than a piece of driftwood that is tossed around by every change in the tide. Sensitivity is not a defect. It's a highly detailed map of the world. It's just that the map has been so detailed that you've been getting lost in the lines instead of using it to find your way. You can start using your sensitivity as a tool for deep understanding and incredible creativity rather than using it as a weapon against yourself. It only takes 3 seconds to reclaim your seat in the cockpit of your own mind. Breathe in, look at the chaos, and label it for what it truly is, just a collection of electrical signals and chemical reactions. Your life has been exhausting not because you're failing, but because you're experiencing life at a level that most people can only imagine. You've been carrying a heavy load because you can feel the weight of things that others are blind to. It's time to stop apologizing for that. It's time to start protecting that energy. You don't have to be a victim of your own perception anymore. You have the power to observe, to label, and to ground yourself in the present moment. Once you stop fearing the noise begins to fade. If you found this perspective helpful and you want to learn more about how to navigate the complexities of your own mind, please subscribe and like this video. It helps us continue to create content that speaks to the truth of your experience. Remember, you are a deeply perceptive, incredibly capable, and brilliantly wired human.